and welcome to LVS Perspectives number 55, a career on perspectives on careers. One of the most fabulous topics, especially at the moment, because the way the world is changing so rapidly as well. So on last week we had our first WOW meeting, which was absolutely amazing. Lovely to see new people on the WOW group as well as the what I'll call the oldies, even though they're not old, but they've just been there a long time. So the WOW was set up over 10 years ago when we were looking at STEM projects, especially with girls, and then it's expanded over the time, and we've created publications, and we've done apprenticeship days, and we've done careers events, and we've put on development days for our sixth form, and it's something that's really grown and become really successful. So if you're a parent and you're watching and you haven't engaged with the WOW and you'd like to, we do have fun as well. So we have our meetings up in the Boardhall, the conference room, and we have a glass of wine when we meet as well, which really does make it very sociable. So I've got a number of the WOW here today. So if we're going to go to the screen, there we go, we can see. And I'm just going to get everybody to introduce themselves. So you've probably got the same view that I have. Can we start with Shari in the top corner there?
Hey, so nice to be here. Thank you for letting us speak. I work as an enterprise architect, which my year 6 described brilliantly as an executive director in charge of squares, boxes, and sometimes circles. So I do software engineering diagrams, having previously been a computer programmer. And I also do business intelligence, so data to support the architecture that I work on in the finance industry.
That's it, Lee.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lee Lefevre-Ayer, and I'm the VP of HR for Enterprise Holdings. Probably you're more familiar with Enterprise Car Share or Enterprise Rent a Car. So we are a mobility company. And so I work in HR, talent development, and talent acquisition.
Tanya.
Hi everyone, I'm a project manager at Microsoft. I work in what we term the employee experience group at Microsoft. So I look after sort of global projects and putting a lot of the internal tools into Microsoft.
Michaela.
I'm Michaela, and I work in the SME market. So I provide an outsourced HR support to small and medium-sized businesses across a wide range of sectors in the local area.
Andrew.
Hi, thanks, Christine. Good to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm a lawyer by profession. I work in a bank and in a large international bank, and I'm very happy to share some thoughts today on evolutions in the legal field, as well as some developments in the banking world that are quite exciting, but also present challenges. So happy to contribute. Thanks for the invite.
Brilliant. Carolyn.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Phelan. I'm an associate professor of computer science at UCL, and we had the good news this morning that the Sunday Times has awarded us the University of the Year. So that was quite nice news to wake up to.
Congratulations. And Yarmila.
Hello, I'm Yarmila Yu, and I'm the founder, MD, and consulting chief marketing officer for our clients at Unique Marketing, and we're a strategic marketing consultancy. But more than just that, I'm a real ambassador for all things entrepreneurship, SMEs, and marketing talent. So connect with me if you want to discuss any of those topics.
Fantastic. And then later on we will be joined with some of our staff who will tell us about what's happening with careers in our wonderful school. But Andrew, we're going to start with you. Fascinating career. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, how did you get to be where you are? Did you go to university? What did you do?
Christine, yes, sure. I did go to university, and as I said, I became a lawyer, so studied in the legal profession, but never really knew what I wanted to do. So I did an undergraduate degree, which was a generic Bachelor of Arts, and majored in economic history. But then I decided, well, law was appealing, so then I did an LLB. But it wasn't necessarily something I decided to do, only to sort of decided to do that once at university. So I think the point I'm making is that I think young people don't really know what their real long-term ambitions are until they mature, and I think it takes time. And one thing led to another, and once you become a professional, whether it's in my case, a lawyer. You don't have to end up being a lawyer. It's a useful degree to have, but I did become a lawyer, and then I went into private practice initially, but then ended up in a corporate. So that was my journey. I happen to be South African, as you can probably hear from my accent, but I also qualified in England, and I practiced for majority of my career in the UK. So that was my quick story.
Thank you. And so in your industry at the moment, what sort of things are you seeing? What's going on that's exciting for us?
So I think in the context of the banking industry, and this applies really to all corporates and any industry globally, quite honestly, is the concept of the digital revolution that we're seeing expanding at rapid pace, and most recently, obviously, the generative AI space. That would be the biggest theme that we're all seeing in all our industries. Essentially, the digital platforms that are made available via corporates offer a much more productive way of operating, and obviously a much more efficient service to consumers who are using corporates. So the digital interaction that companies are trying to ensure their clients get access to is pretty fundamental for the future of any organization, large or small. And I would also say that AI plays a large role in that, and the evolution of AI will take some time to develop, and it will certainly remove a lot of the drudgery that we see in relation to the volume work that organizations have to deal with. And so it's a huge positive. At the same time, it presents large challenges. And I do think that the younger generation will need to understand how organizations are evolving in the context of adapting to the digital evolution, and particularly around AI, because the ways of working of corporates is going to change, and therefore learners need to really understand what those changes are and how that impacts what they decide to do in future careers. But AI is used at the moment in a number of areas, whether it's manufacturing, research, supply chain analysis, data collection, demand forecasting, or inventory management, marketing, customer engagement. I mean, you name it, the law. And so I think it's going to change the way companies operate. And I think that the understanding of how that impacts selection on careers is going to be important. The second area, I think, Christine, for me, is probably the area of sustainability and the ESG evolution that is happening, which I think fundamentally we all need to appreciate is going to change the way we all have to operate. And I think that what we're starting to see is a focus from the corporate world of this issue of why they exist, and this concept of profit not being the only reason for the existence of organizations, but the concept of purpose being combined with the concept of profit. And that is what will really reveal credible organizations. So the credible organizations of the future will be those that combine the concept of profit as well as the concept of purpose. In other words, there needs to be a social agenda towards your credibility and ultimately your success. And I think that will evolve at pace, and with the fact that regulators and society in general is demanding a more sort of stakeholder type capitalism rather than the capitalism of old, we will see an evolution of how companies operate. And people need to understand that in the broader sense, because sustainability has numerous aspects to it. But the social piece is really important, as well as operating in a way that keeps the planet a safe place to live in, because ultimately we all need to understand, and our kids need to understand, that the planet will survive, but the human race will not if we're not prepared to look after it, in simple terms. So I think that is really the kind of focus of what large corporations are trying to get a grip around. And I suppose that's the two themes that I would pick up on as being key for for people to understand in relation to the future generations deciding on what they're going to be looking at career-wise. I would also say, just from a point of view of talent development, that organizations are looking for talent that is rather diverse and not necessarily focused on a particular area. So in other words, the type of talent organizations are recruiting is looking at the innovation side of things, the creation side of things. And even in my world, the traditional banking world is not trying to necessarily recruit accountants and people who've done finance work. In fact, they're looking for all sorts of talent, including engineers and people who understand a broad spectrum of how society needs to operate going forward. So I would say that the type of talent that is being looked at is changing in the sort of corporate space towards the more innovative, creative, and moving away from the sort of siloed approach of, do you have a particular degree that we need to see in a particular area? So I think that would be the last comment I'd make in relation to kind of evolution around talent spotting.
Great, thank you very much. I mean, you've given us 3 really good areas there, and I know we had a sort of a plan of how we might approach this, but I'm going to completely throw that up in the air. Okay, being innovative and creative as I am, because Lee, you were nodding your head all the way through the bit about creativity and innovation. So, and obviously being in HR, can you tell us a little bit more about that and your industry and what you're looking for?
Sure. I mean, we're moving into the mobility space, and what does that mean? It means more like connected car technology, EV technology, connecting with our communities. And so, Andrew, to your point, that is super important. I mean, the talent piece and looking for people that are creative and innovative and have different degrees and different thought processes and come from different backgrounds and different communities is really important to organizations. We were lucky enough to recruit from last year around 120 universities. So we're really reaching into all, and this is in the UK community. But, we are seeing some things around talent and what's going to be so important, I think. And, one of the questions you had asked us to think about, Christine, is what do we need for the future? And it continues to be that resilience. It continues to be that creativity. It continues to be that flexibility of people coming into the workforce, because we've already talked about some of the things that are on the horizon, and organizations don't necessarily have answers to how they're going to approach or address the problem 5 years down the road. So we need people that can be flexible too. One thing that's for sure is, we talked a little about, I'm not, going to talk a lot about AI, but we mentioned it. AI is a tool. It's part of our toolkit, but it's really can't replace that human interaction. And so how do we prepare students and graduates and reskill our workforce to really have that human interaction, and what will that be in 5 years, 10 years? So the flexibility, the resilience is still so important in the workforce.
Thank you. And Michaela, you're also HR as well. So would you like to add anything to what Lee's just been talking about?
Yeah, no, I think it's absolutely what Lee's saying, but I think we also need to be very mindful that this isn't just corporates, it's SMEs as well. 2022, 61% of the employees in the private sector were in SMEs. And so the skills are very similar in there. And I think sometimes actually, as well as parents, we need to change our mindset. It isn't always about our youngsters getting jobs in large corporates, which is great, and all the branding that goes with that. Actually, they can have some great learning experiences by working in smaller organisations and actually having broader roles, seeing perhaps a bigger segment of the organisation and how it operates. So I think absolutely I concur with Lee. Resilience and social skills. Social skills are critical in any organisation. And I think that then also plays into management and leadership skills. The landscape of managing people is changing dramatically, with managing people in a hybrid world, in a remote working world, with very significant technology advances. So I think right now developing skills that allow us to be great people and lead teams, I think is also going to be a critical skill that we need to continue.
Fantastic. And Yarmila, the champion of SMEs, a brilliant marketeer. What are your thoughts?
Well, oh my goodness, I concur with everything that's gone before. what really resonates with me is that a few points that I will make, and our children, our young adults probably won't want to hear this message, but I'm going to say it anyway. Learning never stops. They're probably keen to stop the GCSE courses, the A-level courses, get out from university, but learning never stops, and nor should it. And every piece of learning you do, even if it's not directly leading you may think, to a job immediately, that learning is never wasted. What you do at degree may not have a complete relation to the exact job that you go into. Obviously, for certain professions it does, but you will find a way to lean on that learning and the techniques that learning gives you to use in the world of work. And so I would say that whilst we have talked about on this LVS perspective so far about the changing world and the pace of the changing world, and oh my goodness, it's ever faster, I would like to give some comfort that actually there are some things that haven't changed, and we'd probably be quite good to remember those, because what do employers look for? Well, one thing that they look for is interest in the organization, in the role that you're joining, in developing with the organization. And so showing up and showing that you're really interested in that role that you're applying for, or the sector that you're moving into, that hasn't changed. We as employers want to see that who we're hiring, they're not just there for the salary, they're there because they believe in our mission, they understand our vision, they want to be part of that journey with us, and they're deeply interested. And that, for me, as I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, startup founders and SMEs, they want people to join their team because they want them to buy into that mission that they've laid out. And that's really a strength. And when you can connect with the brand you're joining and with that mission, you're going to enjoy your time at work. And we spend a lot of hours at work, more than we do at home. So you want to be happy in that. And if you're happy, stats show it. You're going to be more productive. You're going to be more successful. And it's just that virtuous cycle for yourself and for the organization, and ultimately society, because you may well be working with organizations that are doing some fabulous, greatness back into society. So yeah, I would say there's a lot of change out there, but there's certain things that haven't changed. So that's a comfort. Learning never stops. I studied languages at university, and yes, I'm a communications professional now, working in marketing, but I very rarely get to use my languages, and I do apologize to those countries where I visit and I attempt to reuse my languages, and they have to rescue me by going to their English. So yeah, those are some top of mind thoughts.
Thank you, Amelia. And it's really interesting. And it is, you have to be passionate about what you do, otherwise you're never going to do it well, are you? Now, Shara, I'm going to throw a question to you. So we've talked about you've got to be passionate, you've got to know about the brand and everything else. But you work in an industry where AI determines the first couple of levels of an interview process. Is that right? So how do young people get through that?
So as before, I don't think AI directly replaces anything. So whether it's the entry level or whether it's the interview or process, it's that it makes things a bit simpler and faster, and as Andrew said, deals with the volume. It doesn't replace anything. So I think the key is value. So as we said before, it's about understanding the changing world. It's about understanding what's happening, what you want to do. But I think you mix that in to get the correct formula with the value you add. So it's about introspection. So what are you good at? And that might not necessarily be academic, like maths or science. It might be communication, collaboration. You're very detail oriented. You notice things. So the value is the key thing that will never, ever get replaced. So as the entry level, we see new people come in, as we see entry level positions. One question was posed, are the entry level positions all going to be automated away? So how would you ever get up to executive level? So, and that comes down to value. So for example, 30, 50 years ago, we had data entry jobs. but it wasn't, and that got automated away, but it wasn't the data entry that was the value. It was the understanding the data, the accuracy, detail orientation, extending the data, interpreting the data. So the data, the jobs that were data entry never went away. They just got easier, such that the data, the people entering the data then can add extra value like data quality. And then that grew. So we've got a whole division on GDPR, understanding personal data and how you should use it and how you shouldn't share it, how that impacts people. Then we've got data governance, making sure the data is accurate and it's not, in danger of being shared where it shouldn't be shared. Then we've got business intelligence about interpreting the data. So I think all of these jobs, all the things I see automated, because we've been, building on AI for decades, the manual entry will go away, but the value that the people add, whether it's an interviewee, whether it's an entry-level graduate, the value remains. So if you really understand your value, even if it is picking up on other people's problems, if you understand your value, that will then morph into something else, like guarding personal data, so that the bot that enters the data can still do that, but then you can guard and make sure the right data is shared in the right places. So I think it's more of a morphing than a blankets losing jobs and things. It's a mutation in a positive way, and that if you actually understand the value you add, whatever value that is, like turning up on time, then you can sort of morph with it and almost create new jobs in the future that we haven't even conceived of today.
It's a really interesting point, because as you say, it's been around a long time. There are things that have morphed over time. It's just now we're more aware of the amazing possibilities that are out there. Now, we've also got Luke Breen here with us as well. Now, Luke is an ex-LVS boy who is now a parent. And Luke, can you tell us a little bit about your journey when you left LVS? What did you do and what are you doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi there. Nice to meet everybody. Yeah, it's lovely that Rupert's joined in reception last week. But yeah, so I left LVS, what did I work out when I was taking the standard photograph at the front door when he was going to reception 21 or so years ago. And for some reason decided that I also always wanted to work in property, and that was going to be commercial property investment up in town. So I was with BNP Paribas on the investment management side for 15 years with BNP. Mainly working with international clients, and spent a long time working in Geneva, a lot of time working in Hong Kong, where I was an expat for a number of years. Then went on to work for a sovereign wealth fund, heading up their UK investment portfolio. And then during COVID, decided actually family life's a little bit more important. What do I want from life? And that wasn't to be on the 5:45 train from Henley to Paddington in the morning and getting home at whatever time it was in the evening. And was really lucky that took some time out to evaluate what I wanted and joined a family office here in Henley, where we are lending predominantly on real estate projects across the home counties and the south coast, but pretty much lending into any sort of commercial enterprise, so to speak, which is great. So I'm approaching a year with them, and it's very different. But I think just hearing a lot of the comments that have been said today, it's about being adaptable, approachable, knowing what you want to be able to do. Trying to work out what value you were bringing, because the family office that I joined, there wasn't actually a role available when I started the discussions, but it was clear that there was synergies, and it was what could we try and do, what can I bring to help the office here, and conversely, what do I want from my career, which was clearly to drive it to the next stage, but also have the flexibility of what I want from my family life as well. So I was very lucky to find that, because I know that not everyone has found that. But yeah, in a bit of a nutshell, that's it. And I think I'd say the key point was it's getting your foot in the door, and how can you do that? And I remember what I always quite liked I was always super approachable, whether it was alumni from my previous school or LVS or other people who went to Oxford Brookes University. Anyone who reaches out to you and just said, look, I don't know you, but I want to get into your industry. They find you on LinkedIn, whatever it might well be. Could we just have a coffee? And quite often that may result in a work placement, or it may just result in connections to other people in the industry. But I think for anyone leaving school, find people who are in your circles on LinkedIn, whether it's from school or wherever it may well be, or even if you don't know them, people are always quite happy to talk about what they do. So I don't think there'd be too many people who would sort of turn down a coffee just to have a chat with somebody about how to get into the industry.
That's brilliant, thank you. And Carolyn, I'm in awe of what you do. I think, to be so brilliant at maths must be absolutely incredible. Not one of my fortes. So what are you seeing in university, in your field? What kind of developments are you seeing?
So obviously, ChatGPT has been huge. AI is huge, in the sense that we are constantly adding new programs and new modules to do with AI, and also AI towards particular areas as well. I think what's happened this year is everybody was blown away by generative AI and the different options that there are out there. And now we're starting to catch up with it. And now we're starting to look at what it adds and actually what it doesn't add. It's quite an interesting exercise that if you start to see a lot of things that have been generated by one of the generative AI systems out there, quite often ChatGPT, you start to become very familiar with the sound of it, the cadence of it. It tends to be over elaborate at the moment, and they haven't got referencing sorted out yet. I suspect that will come soon. But what we need to do is recalibrate our expectations for students and understand the skills that they need to work in a world where generative AI is a thing. So, for example, an interesting exercise is to take a bit of generated text and actually make it a pleasant read. I've had lots of projects this year and documents from students that have said things like, this graph demonstrably exhibits X, write clearly shows, please. And that's just an example. And as I say, I think for not just for university students, I think for students at any level, it would be a good exercise to take a bit of generated text and turn it into something that's a pleasant, clear, not overly wordy read. I mean, I pretty much agree with everything that everybody's said. I think at the moment we're still seeing people want traditional skills, but we need to see how that reflects being able to work with generative AI. Clearly, copyright and content creation, I think, is massive. You saw in Italy where they banned ChatGPT to start with. They've now let it go because of copyright issues. I think there's that aspect of it. I think there's also the aspect of where does the content comes from. If everybody is, creating content is going to become more and more important, and the ability to do that is more and more valuable. And by content, I don't just mean art and songs and plays, and I mean technical content in the sense that Sharia will be creative in the work that she does, even though it's a technical field. Things like that is something that people will that is where the value will come from, will be original content. And of course, when you've added that content, the question becomes, how do you make money out of that if it immediately can be used by anyone anywhere? And that's a big question at the moment. Sustainability is huge. We have a sustainability masters within computer science now. And what I'm seeing is the interest from students. I organise student projects. 5 years ago, if you tried to push a load of computer science students to do a project on sustainability, there wouldn't have been much interest. The projects on sustainability this year, I could have filled them. I could have filled them 3 times over. So I think it's good that we've got a generation of people coming through that really sees that as important. And the final point is more general. I think we've focused on AI, we've focused on, ChatGPT, things like that. I think the difference is the speed of change. So the fact that, yes, computers came in and they're now used in schools, but pupils have their own computers. That was maybe a 20, 30-year process to get from the first computers to, them being so ubiquitous now. We started the academic year without ChatGPT. We are finishing the academic year with it being ubiquitous. I think that it'll be interesting to see if that speed of change is something, it doesn't matter what the change change is that speed of change something that we have to prepare ourselves and our students for. And so that's the final thing. And also as a university, as a researcher, we're looking to the future. I think the next, we can't keep our eyes off that. I think the next revolutionary change, if they get it to work, will be quantum computing, and that will literally change everything as we know it. And so, that is, I think, where the future lies. I saw a job advert the other day, first mainstream job advert at a pharmaceutical company looking for someone who was an expert in quantum computing. Obviously, it's been a niche technical field up to now. It's starting to spread out into the wider commercial world. And if it does get to a point where it becomes ubiquitous, it will have an extraordinary effect on life as we know it. And that's really up to date with where I'm at.
Carolyn, what is quantum computing?
So rather than using traditional computers are based around a bit, it's a 1 or a 0, and that's why some of your students will be learning binary algebra to understand binary computing, binary numbers to understand what a computer and how it converts those 1s and 0s into what you see on a screen, the calculations it does. My image on the screen, your image on the screen, all that is based on 1s and 0s. What quantum computing, and so that is limited. You can have parallel computing where there's lots of calculations going on at once. What quantum computing, but ultimately a bit only can take 2 states, 1 or 0. What quantum computing has is qubits, quantum bits, and they can take any state, an infinite number. Well, in theory, an infinite number. In practicality, there are limits, but they can take multiple states at once. So it is, you're looking at things like suddenly cryptography, the cryptography schemes that you use for online banking, for example, they would take years and years and years and years, hundreds of years to crack. If they get it to work, which is, ongoing, that would be something that would be cracked in seconds. It will change the world if they get it to work in a reliable and, sort of something that you can go out and buy, reliable and cost-effective way. It will change the world as we know it, without a doubt.
Wow, we are in exciting times, aren't we? And Tanya, working in the industry that you do, you must have seen tremendous growth and things going on in the last couple of years. I mean, what's your view on everything you've heard?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly, if I think about career-wise, the ability to cope with change is paramount. And to move forward with that and to embrace it is really, you have to be adaptable, as they talked about earlier. And, you have to, going back to AI, I mean, AI is, we're all over AI, and we're testing out the co-pilots and everything right now. And we have to think about it as a toolkit for what we do. And, I had a colleague this week that sent out, because we work sort of internally, is about this. There's a real skill about writing prompts for AI right now, and if you want help creating like an email, an article, a product description, a speech or something, then it's really about making sure the prompts that you're writing are absolutely correct. And if you think about, I'm going to coin a phrase from her, what she said, AI won't replace writers, but writers who use AI may replace writers who don't. And I think that was really key in the transformation that we're going through right now.
That's really interesting, because I started writing a book, another one, a couple of years ago, which I haven't managed to do. I'm thinking about feeding it into ChatGPT and see if it can make, do the rest of the story for me. But I've got a confession to make as well the other day, because I haven't really ever kind of played with ChatGPT. And our governors had been in for a couple of days, and on the first day it was decided that the makeup of the subcommittees was going to change, and my job was to write the terms of reference. So I didn't get home till about 7 o'clock, and I thought, this is going to take me at least a day. And I thought, right, I'm going to test it out. And I sat there and I put the first one in and I said, write me a terms of reference for blah, blah, blah. I copied and pasted all the regulations in, no full stops, nothing in there, thinking, yeah, let's see what you can do. And I sat there looking at it thinking, no, you're thinking you can't do it. And I hadn't scrolled down. And then I realised that I'd been sat there and it had been there almost immediately. The most incredible, well laid out, sectioned, paragraphed, fantastic terms of reference. So at that point I went and poured myself a glass of wine and came back and did the other 7 in about 56 minutes. So thank you, Chat GPT. And I did tell the governors I'd used artificial intelligence. But for things like that, absolutely invaluable. And just going on to sustainability then, and because as you say, Karen, you've got a module in the computer science degree now. I've seen it in other degrees. There seems to be a module in every university degree that I've seen. I'm just going to go around the board and just say what kind of things are going on. So Shari, what kind of things does your company do with sustainability? What's the focus there?
So in my area, so I'm an enterprise architect, so sort of usual software engineering, but getting systems to connect together. I saw a fabulous project, which I really want to evolve again next year, where it was a sustainability calculator for a data center. So having an enormous data center constantly running, we're not even using it all, is it's not ideal. So one of the architectural projects areas I am in is cloud, a public cloud. So to have a burst into cloud when you need it and then sort of scale back down when you don't is much more sustainable than having a massive 10-story concrete data center continuously on with air conditioning. So the sustainability calculator was to sort of try and compare where are we now, how are we improving, what benefits can we see, what trends can we see, can we prove to corporate life that this is a better thing to do, and then use the business intelligence to then kick off more projects to say let's keep our technology green as we can. So that's a really good project that I want to keep resurrect again each year.
Brilliant. Andrew, over to you.
I think in the concepts of sustainability, you're seeing a lot of focus on various organizations, not just in the banking world, commit to net zero, and obviously everyone trying to reduce their scope 3 emissions. So it's all about how do you achieve that in the long run. And in the context of the banking industry, it's about sustainable finance and commitments around financing green and sustainability linked transactions. So if there's an organizational shift that we're seeing across all sorts of industries, it's a commitment to reduce what is referred to as scope 3 emissions, which are those emissions you are indirectly contributing to as large organizations. And that doesn't just apply to large, but to small as well. And I suppose with the regulatory stick that we're seeing across most industries, that's probably going to be the biggest challenge for industry generally, and obviously in the context of banking, it's about who do you finance and the type of clients you select to engage with, and an adjustment towards what you are prepared to do in order to achieve your own net zero commitment. So it does involve a shift in the nature of the financing that is provided. So that is probably the number one focus area for banks, but doesn't just apply to banks. Generally, it applies to all organizations. I would say that's the number one, Christine.
Thank you. And Lee, in the car industry.
Yeah, I mean, what Andrew talked about is super important. And I think a lot of industries right now are really, especially if you've got an early start with connecting with the United Nations sustainable goals, you're kind of reimagining what that is. So how does, like, I mentioned before, connected car technology or car share, how does that impact that move to net zero? But to put it a little bit in a different perspective, and this is something that any company can do regardless of the size of the organization, is really thinking about the social value that you provide your community. So it's about, volunteering in your community. What are you doing to impact food poverty in local areas? I mean, to me, that I think student, poverty in food poverty on campuses across the UK is probably going to be something we're going to be looking at in the next, we probably already are. I can see Carolyn nodding her head. But those are things that we can make a difference, and we can take collective value together and work with universities or work with local communities to really make a change. So I think there's something about that social value and connecting back, and what organizations can do and how they can band together for the social good and really impact areas like diversity, equity, and inclusion, for example. So I think that's where people are kind of moving toward from that perspective.
Thank you. Yamila?
Well, you could at this point start to blame the marketers for some of the problems that exist in the world, because we're all about driving growth and making people consume more, and we're here to try and get people to buy more stuff. Well, actually, we can actually take a different approach to the marketing, and there's different things that I would suggest as tips and tricks for people to consider. So whether you are a solopreneur, whether you're a micro business, whether you're an SME, whether you're a corporate, have a think about the marketing that you're doing. And back to Andrew's point about profit with purpose, thinking about driving sustainable, profitable growth rather than growth at any cost. And there are some things that you can think about. People often think, oh, well, we're all on digital these days, so it's all good. We're totally green, aren't we? Well, all that data that you're storing, all those emails you're sending out, all those emails you're receiving and maybe not deleting, but you're just leaving in your whichever email platform you've got, many brands are available, that's all consuming energy, power. They're all in a cloud storage center somewhere. Is that being run on green energy? ? Are your websites being run? Are they digitally hosted by green digital hosters? They might be. The print work that you do, you still need physical communications in a digital era. That's a great way to cut through with your marketing. Are you printing with ethical inks and on protected, paper sources? So there's lots of things that you can just, by asking questions, you can start to make some changes to start to do the right things that can make a better impact on our resources. There's all sorts of changes. So from small to large, thinking about, do you need to travel to meetings, or can you do them via Zoom, Teams, etc. There's lots of things you can do. Switching electricity from to green providers, switching to LEDs, all manner of little changes will add up. And I would say for those that might be listening that are an SME, the SME Climate Hub, Google that or go into any other platform you're using. There's a wealth of resources on there about how to check what your carbon emissions are to get you down the path to being a lot more sustainable. But yes, marketing is a great way. So if you've got marketers in your business, go talk to them and start to be asking the questions. And marketing can be a force for good. And it's a great communication point back out to your suppliers, to procurement, to help you win business, to win those employees who are looking to work for a client that is taking a sustainable approach, to raise investment. It might hold the key.
Thank you. Tanya, you probably know that I probably would come to you now. When the first part of what Yamila was saying, have you got anything to add there at all?
Just in terms of sustainability, absolutely. Certainly, I work for a company that's very hot on sustainability right now, and the efforts to become carbon negative by 2030, and it is all about responsibility. And you can look at that responsibility. We certainly look for people that have an understanding of responsible AI and responsibility sustainably as well. And that covers all sorts. We can look at accountability, we can look at fairness, we can look at inclusivity, privacy, security, and that carbon neutral piece that we all, certainly around all our data centers, that we're looking to make carbon neutral. And work is going on all the time now, and we the vendors that we use, we're making sure. So yeah, really good. And those people and that have that interest in that are really, we look at those people and we use those people all the time.
Brilliant, thank you. Luke, have you got
and actually, Tanya, it was your sustainability calculator that we used, so thank you.
It's really good stuff. You can learn so much. I'm learning so much by just talking to you guys, because this is what we need to, we talk about sustainability in school, but we've got to make it more alive. We've got to do a lot more on that. Luke, have you got anything you'd like to add to the conversation?
Yeah, quickly, I think on the sustainability piece, I mean, we're in the lending sphere, but green lending has become so much more important, even on a family office level, for the kind of projects that we're lending on. And when developers approaching us, it's gone are the days of just looking at the energy performance certificate and putting that in the top drawer. It's making sure that the developers have got green credentials all the way through, and the projects that we're lending on are as green as they possibly can be. And then the other spectrum is, one, our principal family office, the importance that they need the investments that we're making are green, but also we have third-party investors into the fund as well, and they're all looking for the green credentials as well. So from what we're doing, we see it across the whole sphere, from where we're lending the money through to what we're doing for our principals and third-party investors as well. And it's got to be done, and it's got to be done to higher than the levels that the government are just saying, can you do this? It's how can we exceed and go beyond that, and that's not going to change.
Thank you. And Michaela?
Yeah, I mean, I think, if you look at it in the SME market, it's all around recognising that it's going to be a key factor in attracting and retaining talent. It's on so many people's agenda. It's not a topic that can be ignored. Is it always at the top of the agenda? Probably not. And some of that is about lack of knowledge, lack of skills. And I think, hubs like the one Yamila's just referenced are critical tools for all of these businesses. But quite often, a lot of our SMEs don't know where to find things. So it's about how does that get pushed out more? But it's absolutely up there. Employees expect it. If you're in supply chain, your clients expect it. So it's got to be on everybody's agenda. It doesn't matter how big or small you are.
But it seems that everybody's singing from the same song sheet, which is the most important thing to obviously safeguard the future. So I'm going to move on to the school staff now. So for our panel from the WOW, thank you so much. I know some of you, all of you are really busy. You're very welcome to stay if you want to, or you can disappear off. And I'm going to go over to the school staff. But thank you, WOW. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you. I think our next meeting's on the 20th. We're still welcoming new people if you want to come and join us. But I'm going to pass over now to, we've got Freya Wall and Kate Mackrell. The pressure's on you guys, because seriously, you've just heard all of that, and now it's how we can deliver for our children. So Freya, should we start with you?
Thank you, Christine, and thank you so much to all the speakers who've supported us today, because as Christine said, I was learning so much from listening into that conversation. I'm a physicist by trade. I teach physics at the school. So to hear the information about quantum computing, I was getting very excited and sort of planning talks we could do for the sixth form, who would also, I'm sure, be as equally interested in that. And lots of things for us to consider as well. In terms of sustainability, we actually have a group in our sixth form led by a member of our prefect team, and they are very passionate about sustainability, but sometimes I think they would be interested to know and get some ideas from industry, from that wider field of employers, just to motivate them and help them drive us forward in the right direction in terms of sustainability. Right, I'm going to take you through how we're developing our careers, education, information, advice and guidance. Yes, it is a bit of a mouthful. How we're developing that this year in the secondary school. So Christine, are you able to share? Thank you. So one of the first things we've done this year, which is very exciting, is that we've actually brought our career advisor provision in-house. We have a fabulous new careers advisor working with us, and she's able to provide one-to-one guidance for students throughout the school, and also just be there to support, to offer assemblies, introducing students to careers in year 7, for example, all telling them about their different options that they could be taking as they're moving further up the school. So we're very, very lucky to have that resource. They will be there on occasions such as the options fair that are coming up for our younger students, where they can think about what choices they want to make for their GCSEs. We also have our Learning for Life programme. Now, this incorporates so much because it does focus on the curriculum side of things. So things like the future options, actual scheme of work that they look at in year 11, or your future that they look at in year 7. Careers is very much embedded throughout that programme. But also it focuses on some of those employability skills that Michaela mentioned earlier. So we're really looking at developing those characteristics, things like resilience, the ability to adapt to change, because it's very much a changing world. So that flexibility, just to make sure that our students are prepared for those next steps when they transition and move on from LVS Ascot. We're also very lucky that we have something called Morrisby testing. So that I'm new to the school. This is something that I've used before, and this is a very bespoke service. So our students in year 10 and 11 all go through this testing process, and what they get at the end of this is some action plans, some suggestions based on them as individuals. And it's so important for them to have that knowledge, to be thinking about what their next steps are going to be, because if they're putting in all this effort in terms of their revision, their studying, their engagement in the lessons, it's really important for them to know their why. What are they aiming for? Why are they doing this? Why are they working so hard? And that really helps them in terms of their academic and their personal development if they've got that end goal in sight. Doesn't matter if it changes, but if they've got some idea of what and who they want to be in the future, they are looking at that end goal, and that helps them with their motivation in the classes. Very exciting this year. We also have our Future Options Fair. You will have heard the term Careers Fair, I'm sure, but I am going to adapt this to Future Option because I think times are changing. We don't just have one career that we go into now. Myself, teaching is my second career. Previously, I was in the military. So actually, Future Options broadens that out and makes students realise that there's lots of different routes they can take, lots of different things they can do at very different times in their lives. And so we're going to be engaging with local employers, getting them into school and creating this really exciting environment where our students can go around and chat directly with employers, hear about things like the employability skills they need to be working on, network for the older students, and also start setting their sights high, aiming high, and looking at what options are out there for them. We will be continuing with the Year 12 work experience, such an important experience for those Year 12 students to see what the world of work is actually like, to see what will be going on, what do they need, how are they going to network, what skills do they need to work on as individuals so that they are going to transition either to university, employment, further education successfully in the future. Within our course of assemblies, career is embedded throughout. We've got things as well like sort of gender stereotypes in careers. So making sure that students are aware and aren't pushed into one particular path. In year 11, we'll have the apprenticeship support and knowledge. So they are threaded throughout our assemblies programme. And we do always focus on those next steps, developing that student confidence and enabling them to reflect on their own strengths and where that might take them. We also have educational visits, and these are varied. So it might be year 10, for example, going up to visit our Link College at Oxford University to get an idea of university life and specifically Oxbridge's options that are there. We've also got the sixth form, they're going out to a careers fair, and just getting out of the school environment and seeing firsthand what there is out there is a really, really exciting experience for our students and is something that they absolutely love. I think, do we have somebody who's going to speak about the sixth form development day? Christine, are you going to talk about this one?
Yeah, so this is an exciting initiative by the WOW group, and it's going to be on Friday the 24th of November. And it's a day where we will have our Year 12 will be off timetable. And we're looking at keynote speakers. So we have some people coming in from industry to talk to the children. We're going to look at some kind of psychometric or personality testing. So a bit similar to Myers-Briggs, so that we can look at how we work and how we might work with each other in the future and in school, actually, on projects. And in the afternoon, we're looking for a carousel of industry speakers, subject specific. So I'm sure I can get all the WOW group involved in that one as well. But if there are any parents out there who can offer a talk to us or alumni on your area. So I know, for example, I think we've got about 4 or 5 alumni pilots that I'm in regular contact with. So we really want to bring you into school, and so that you can talk to our Year 12 in particular about what life might look like in different careers. So please be in contact with me, and also can we encourage everybody to get in on LinkedIn. So it's a wonderful resource, and I will be trawling through my LinkedIn in the next couple of days to get these speakers. So if you can help us, then please do. So thank you, Miss Wall. Thank you very much. If you'd like to stay on the call, just in case, okay, and we're going to go over to Kate Mackrell in the junior school, because obviously it's never too young to start thinking about what you're going to do. Kate, are you there? She might not be there.
I am, but my mute wouldn't turn off. I do apologise. Yeah, absolutely. It's never too young. And even our reception children down at the age of 4, we are starting to think about careers for them and jobs, obviously age appropriate, thinking about jobs in school and the people who help them. We also look at people in the community that help them. So we have visits from the fire brigade and from the paramedics and from guide dogs and all sorts of things to give them, experience of, people who are out there in the world available to help them. So on my slide, thank you very much, Eamon, you can see our PSHE programme, our life learning. And right from down in reception, right the way through to Year 6, there are aspects of careers and aspirations, really, building those, setting those sights high for the children to think about what they want to do after their schooling. And that covers so many different options and so many different ideas. Up in Year 6, we look at, different career routes. It might be university, it might be apprenticeships. You might go and do something completely different, but it's about making the children aware that it doesn't just have to be that one route that suits other people, but might not suit them. Stereotypes in the workforce, like Miss Wall was saying, we look at all of that sort of thing, looking that, anyone can be a doctor, anybody can be a nurse, anyone can be anything they want if they put their mind to it. And we also have a trip to Kidzania during our careers week in the summer term, I think it is. So reception up until Year 4 will have that trip into London where they can actually go and try out jobs in various different environments. We had children last year pretending to put on a radio show or be on television and be an anchor person for a news show. We had children who were learning dances to be on the stage or in the arts, and children pretending to pilot a plane, which quite frankly terrifies me, but it's great for them to know that those options are out there. Year 6 obviously have their Young Tycoon programme. So a bit like Dragon's Den, they are awarded some money from the school and they can use that to set up effectively their own business. We invite parents in for an afternoon where the children will sell their wares and try and make as much profit as possible. And also we have special entrepreneurship slots in the timetable this year for Years 5 and 6. So they're going to be looking at all sorts of different options of how we can use our skills and our knowledge to apply that to real life. I was very heartened, and I echo Miss Wall's thanks to the WOW group. It's lovely to hear you all speak, but I was so heartened to hear you mention all of our learning values and skills that we have here in the infant and junior school, our collaboration, our creativity, our risk-taking. So I think a really important part of careers advice and careers guidance down in the IJS is about the junior diploma and the learning values and skills, because any school can teach maths and English. They have to. It's kind of one of those things. We at LVS are giving them something extra. We are making them think about those skills that employers really do want, the real life skills that are going to stand them in good stead and set them apart from the wide field of applicants when they eventually get to their next steps. And I think that is so valuable for them to have down at this age. I was also really interested in the sustainability aspect because we are starting to follow White Rose Science this year in the infant and junior school, and it has a massive focus for every year group, right from year 1 upwards, about sustainability. And there is a block in for every year group to think about how sustainability impacts them and how they can impact the world in general. So like you said, Christine, it's never too early to start thinking about those things. And if we can instill these values in the children at this very young age, hopefully that's something that they will take with them into adulthood and hopefully beyond as well.
Absolutely. And I think when we look at this in the round, it's what we call the LVS advantage, because it's all that extra. As you say, any school can teach English and maths, but not everybody can do what we do. And looking at the entrepreneurship, obviously we had a great project in the summer term, and we looked at the Viking longboat, and that was right across our curriculum in so many different ways. And we got another one coming after October half term on water, and that could be quite tremendous. It's amazing what young people can come up with that as well. So we are proud about what we do. We have tremendous staff, a brilliant programme, fantastic parents, and we all work together to ensure that our children embrace the future. I mean, what a fantastic, amazing, exciting future, although probably a little bit scary as well for all of us, but it's fantastic. Thank you, Mrs. Wall, thank you, Mrs. Mackrell, thank you to all our guests today. It's been an absolutely brilliant discussion. We've had no questions come through whatsoever, so I think everybody's probably just in stunned silence that it was just such a brilliant presentation by you all. But anyway, thank you so much. Have a good weekend, everybody, and we're ready for another exciting week next week at LVS Ascot. Okay, good afternoon and goodbye.